welcome back to the shop. It's time for another episode of So You Want to Be a Race Car Driver, put on by Ferrari Motorsports. Today's episode is basically going to be on why we chose endurance road racing as our chosen discipline of motorsport, and why we chose Champcar Endurance Series in particular to go racing with. We're going to start with endurance road racing. Now, endurance road racing is typically done on a designated track. They're typically 2 to 3 miles long, some longer, some a little shorter. Some might be converted NASCAR speedways, like Indianapolis has an infield road course track that coincidentally Champcar is going to be hosting 2 10-hour endurance races there over the summer. And basically you get out on, it kind of looks like a road, but it's a purpose-built racetrack. The surface is a little smoother. You have a little more banking, and it's a little more, the features of the track are a little more extreme than what you might find on a typical road, unless you go to some place like, say, Tail of the Dragon, where they have 300 odd turns in an 11-mile stretch of road or whatever it is. So that's the road racing part. It's called road racing because the track you are racing on looks like a road. The endurance part comes in, and the typical length of an endurance race is several hours long. Champcar usually hosts 8 plus, they call it 8 plus 7, where the race on Saturday is 8 hours, the race on Sunday is 7 hours. Some races are 7 and 7s, like our debut at Watkins Glen is a 7 plus 7. And they also have a test day on Friday that we're hoping to take advantage of. Other races are longer, like the aforementioned Indianapolis races. It's 10 hours Saturday, 10 hours Sunday. Some races are even longer than that. They have a 24-hour race that usually happens at Virginia International. And they usually have at least one more 24-hour race that kind of rotates tracks. Last year it was at Nelson Ledges. This year I'll have to check the schedule to see where that would be at. So, now that we know what endurance road racing is, now we can get into why we selected it. Why we selected endurance road racing. I want to start by saying this is not a knock, not a put down to other disciplines of racing. Everybody has their outlet and their passion. Some guys just want to drop as big a motor as possible and as small a car as possible and go as fast as possible. And believe me, there's some wild combinations out there. While racing with Mac Attack down in Florida, one time we saw a Mini with a big block in it. That's right, a Mini Cooper with a big block in it. Pretty insane stuff out there. Pretty ingenious people out there racing. And it's just a lot of variety and expression in whatever form of motorsport you want to get into. Now, that being said, the reason we selected endurance road racing is just for the simple fact that while a lot of other motorsports you can get away as a one-man band, endurance road racing kind of forces you to build at least a small team. You need to have at least 2 drivers. And typically you need 1 to 2 crew guys also to help out during driver changeovers, fueling of the car, and just to help out with any little things to help keep things progressing on the racetrack. So, and that fits in with our mission here of sharing our passion for motorsports. That means that we have to contact people. Right now it's just going to be friends and family that are helping us out, but in the future I want to open it up to a lot more people and kind of make it easier and more accessible for somebody to, dip their toes in the water and decide if it's too hot or not. Give them access to the team, let them see what we're about, and which is the whole purpose of these videos that we're putting out, is to do just that. So you can watch our progress as we go from startup team, average Joes, myself, my brother, my wife, to racing pros. So now that we have covered why we chose endurance road racing, Let's talk about sanctioning bodies for a minute. We're going to be racing under Champcar Endurance Series for a number of reasons, but just to kind of highlight the number of sanctioning bodies that are out there. I mean, it's not just road racing. You got NHRA for drag racing. That's the big one that everybody knows. NASCAR for circle track racing. That's the big one everybody knows. But it's not the only one. World of Outlaws is out there. And you got feeder series to kind of move drivers up into the higher levels. And that's kind of a goal for a lot of guys that get into the motorsports. They start low and try to work their way up just so that they can, they have a goal to shoot for. Our mission here for our motorsports is a little bit different, but at the end of the day, we'll see what happens as time goes. Now back to sanctioning bodies. The reason why we chose Champcar Endurance Series, it's just easy, comparatively easy to get into compared to other series. There's no expensive high performance driving courses you have to accomplish. They are highly recommended, but they're not necessary. Licensing requirements is a $50 yearly fee to the club, valid U.S. driver's license, and novice drivers are required to take a class before the race starts to become familiar with track etiquette and the flags and signals that track workers will be using to signal you. Now, just because it is an easy series comparatively licensing wise to get into, that does not mean that they do not run in a professional manner. If you are behaving like an idiot, there are a lot better terms, but they're not YouTube friendly, believe me. If you're behaving like an idiot, they will not hesitate to pull you over and say, hey, stop it, or what are you doing? And you might get a little leniency if you're new, but if you keep making the same mistakes, they will not hesitate to eject you from the event. They will not hesitate, because your mistakes are putting you in jeopardy. They are putting the other drivers, your fellow racers, in jeopardy, and they are putting the event in jeopardy. If an organization comes to town, to a track, and these tracks aren't owned by the sanctioning bodies. A lot of times these are private owners that the sanctioning bodies negotiate with to hold events at these tracks. If a sanctioning body comes to town and all of their racers act like idiots and the sanctioning body is unprofessional, the sanctioning body's probably not going to last too much longer, because they're not going to have tracks that they can race at. They're not going to have tracks that want to let them race there. And then their racers are going to go elsewhere because they can't get races, all because of idiotic behavior. So, just a big point: courtesy and knowing what's going on track, what you need to know to go on track. Again, just because Champcar has a relatively unrestricted licensing process does not mean that you as a racer are free to act like an idiot like the average driver that we see on the street does, oblivious to things going on. You have to pay attention. You have to know what's going on track and around you at all times. Now, also talking about the sanctioning bodies, we have to talk about the rule books. Some sanctioning bodies have these big, thick rule books that are Byzantine and hard to navigate, especially at the higher levels. They try to make them as straightforward as possible, but as with anything else, be it racing, any kind of gaming, anything, you're going to have the people that are going to lawyer the rules to death, try to go against the spirit of the rules, and then next thing you know, we have a congressional bill that we have to navigate instead of a fun, simple rule book to make a car safe and compliant to race on track. That's currently not the case with the Champcar rules. There have been a lot of changes, and there are a lot of cars that are on track now that fall in classes that they wouldn't have qualified for, 5-10 years ago. But that's the nature of the beast. Cars are getting nicer, racers are getting more professional, and just kind of, the rules kind of morph to follow what their racer base is clamoring for. However, I feel, after going over the rule book, that they did a pretty good job of keeping it fairly straightforward and understandable. You don't need a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer to go through it. There's no legalese. It's pretty straightforward, pretty concise language. And they lay it out pretty well, and I feel it's a pretty good format. And that's another reason why we chose Champcar Endurance Series, is just the ease and straightforwardness of the rule book. That's not to say that other series rule books aren't straightforward, but just for all the factors considered when we decided we want to do endurance road racing, Champcar was the obvious pick for us, especially considering our location in Northeast Ohio and the ability that we're going to have to travel around to all these different tracks and take our mission with us. Now, besides the teamwork building aspect of endurance road racing versus other series, which, don't get me wrong, especially at the higher ends, everybody needs a team. You look at professional drag racing, professional level drag racing, you've got at least 6 or 7 guys tearing down these nitro cars every pass, putting it back together, and they got less than 2 hours to do it. No way one guy is getting away with that. But the lower levels tend to be kind of more one-man band operations, which might be better suited for some people. You can relatively easily put a drag car together. Maybe you need a bolt-in roll cage, 4-point cage, a helmet, and not a whole lot else to go drag racing. And you do build friendships at the track. They become like a second family to you. But at the end of the day, it's your car, you're driving, and you go home and you can have fun with it that way. Your big concern, yes, you want the car to last the weekend, but you don't need it to last as long as, say, an endurance car, which is kind of a draw for me personally for endurance racing. Is not just building a quick car. We have to have a reliable car that's going to stand the test of time. It's not a 10 to 15 second or faster quarter mile pass. We're talking 2.5 minute or quicker laps, depending on the track, over a course of 7-8 hours. So we're not just talking about building the car. Now we're talking about building the car to last. You can build the biggest, baddest beast in the world, but if it can't last more than an hour or two on track before something grenades, then you just wasted all that money to go to the track and not have a chance of winning. So it's kind of a strategy aspect to it, not just, building a car. We got to build a car to last. We got to build a car that can last the stint, which in Champcar is 2 hours. So we have to have a car that has enough fuel capacity, or the engine is efficient enough, or the drivers are efficient enough to be able to make it that 2 hours. The more momentum, the more momentum we can keep going, the less we have to spend in fuel to make that car do what we want it to do. Tire management, which we won't know until we get the car on track, but some people go through multiple sets of tires a weekend. Some people go through one set. All depends on the car, and it all depends on how it's set up and what the team is looking to get out of the car. Are they looking to get the fastest lap? Well, then they're probably going to go through tires and brakes faster compared to the team that just wants to finish. Which there are teams out there that just want to go to the track and they want to finish. Now, this brings us to another point about endurance road racing, and part of the reason why we selected it. In drag racing, you typically have your qualifying passes, and then drivers get eliminated as the day goes on. So if you're not in that, if you don't get that win light, that means you're done. You got no more chances. Sometimes you can buy back, which is where you pay money to get back into the race, but typically once you get eliminated, especially at the professional level, just due to the time constraints, you're out. Endurance racing, it's not over until the checkered flag goes. So you could be down 20 laps, but you're still allowed out on the track. You can still go. You can still get your seat time. So that's one reason why another reason why we selected endurance road racing. You just the sheer amount of seat time that you get for the money that you put out. All right, so we're going to kind of recap here. Endurance road racing, we get the most seat time out of any other kind of racing. We feel it's our best bang for our buck, and it forces us to involve more people in our team than other series might otherwise require. Champcar Endurance Series, ease of licensing, straightforwardness of the rule book, and pretty loose restrictions on what you can actually race. You basically just have to make sure that it falls within their points guideline and that it is safe and operable. Good looking. Most people like their race cars to look good, so you get a lot of them that are fairly well maintained in that department as well. So that's going to do it for this overview today. We've got a few little projects in the shop that we're wrapping up. It is Sunday, so it is kind of family day. I'm getting ready for the work week again. Starts tonight for me. I work nights, so we're kind of getting that going. And as always, we really appreciate your support for our mission and just for us in general, trying to get as much information as we can out to you so that you can make an informed decision about whether you want to become a race car driver or not. So, if you like this content, if you want us to keep going, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the team today, and share this with anybody that you know that wants to be a race car driver or that they might be curious about it. As always, have a fun, fantastic day turning miles into smiles, which is the mission here at Ferrari Motorsports.